Introduction to Practicing English at Home. Welcome to the Bookish English channel. Today's story is all about learning how to practice English at home. Many people want to improve their English, but they don't always know where to start. Some think they need to travel to an English-speaking country or join a special school. But the good news is, you can become good at English even if you are practicing by yourself at home. Let's meet our character, Sameerah, and learn how she does it. Sameerah is a young girl who lives in a small town. She doesn't have anyone to practice English with, but she loves the language. She watches English movies, listens to songs, and dreams of speaking fluently one day. Sameerah knows that learning English will open many doors for her in the future, so she is determined to become better. But how can Sameerah practice when she's at home? How can she improve without going to a class every day? This is something many people wonder about. The answer is simple: by using different ways to practice speaking, listening, reading, and writing. Sameerah realizes that, with a little creativity and discipline, she can make great progress, even from her living room. Start with a plan. The first thing Sameerah does is make a plan. She decides that she will practice English every day. She doesn't need to study for hours. Sometimes just 20 minutes is enough. The most important thing is to be consistent. Sameerah writes down a simple plan for each day of the week. Here's what her plan looks like. Monday. Listen to English songs and try to understand the lyrics. Tuesday. Watch a short video in English on YouTube. Wednesday. Practice speaking in front of a mirror. Thursday. Read a short story or article in English. Friday. Write a few sentences in English about her day. Saturday. Use a language learning app for 10 minutes. Sunday. Chat online with friends in English. Sameerah knows that if she follows this plan, she will improve in all areas of English. She will learn to listen, speak, read, and write better over time. Each day she focuses on something different, so she doesn't get bored. Step 1. Listening to English every day. The first thing Sameerah focuses on is listening. She knows that listening to English is one of the best ways to learn new words and understand how people speak naturally. But where can she find English to listen to? She starts with music. Sameerah loves listening to songs. She searches for popular English songs on the internet. When she finds a song she likes, she listens to it carefully. The first time she listens, she doesn't worry about understanding every word. She just enjoys the music. Then she listens again and tries to catch a few words or phrases. If she doesn't know what a word means, she writes it down and looks it up later. For example, one of her favorite songs is Immersion by John Lennon. At first, she doesn't understand all the words, but she likes the melody. After listening a few times, she recognizes the word imagine and looks it up in the dictionary. She learns that it means to think of something in your mind. Sameerah feels excited because now she understands more of the song. Besides music, Sameerah also watches short videos in English. She likes to watch funny clips or simple cartoons. These are easy for her to understand, and they help her hear how people speak in everyday conversations. Sameerah makes it a habit to watch at least one short video every day. Sometimes she watches the same video more than once. Each time she watches, she understands a little more. Listening to English becomes part of Sameerah's daily life. Whether she is cleaning her room or cooking, she plays an English song or a podcast in the background. This way, she gets used to hearing the language, even if she's not always paying full attention. Step 2. Practicing speaking English. Next, Sameerah practices speaking English. This is the part that makes her feel shy. She doesn't have anyone to talk to, so how can she practice? Sameerah decides to talk to herself. It may sound funny, but it really helps. Every morning, Sameerah stands in front of her mirror. She looks at herself and pretends to have a conversation. She says, "Good morning, Sameerah. How are you today?" Then she answers, "I'm fine, thank you. How are you?" Sameerah continues asking and answering simple questions. She says things like, "What is your favorite color?" and answers, "My favorite color is blue." Here's your passage with proper punctuation. What do you like to eat? I like pizza. At first it feels strange to talk to herself, but after a few days, she gets used to it. She starts to feel more comfortable speaking English, even if no one is there to listen. Sameerah also practices saying things she does during the day. For example, when she makes breakfast, she says, "I am cooking eggs." When she gets ready to go out, she says, "I am putting on my shoes." Speaking like this helps her think in English, which makes it easier to speak naturally. Sometimes, Sameerah uses her phone to record herself speaking. She listens to the recording afterward to see if she sounds clear. If she notices a mistake, she practices the sentence again until she gets it right. This makes her more aware of how she speaks and helps her improve. Step 3. Reading in English. Sameerah also loves reading. She knows that reading is a great way to learn new words and see how sentences are written. But she doesn't start with difficult books. Instead, Sameerah begins with children's books. They are short and have simple language, which makes them perfect for beginners. Sameerah finds some English books at her local library. One of her favorite books is about animals. It has pictures and easy sentences like, "The cat is on the bed," and "The dog runs fast." As she reads, Sameerah notices that she understands more and more. If there is a word she doesn't know, she uses a dictionary to find the meaning. She also uses the internet to find short stories in English. There are many websites that offer free stories for beginners. Sameerah enjoys reading these stories because they are fun and interesting, and she can learn new words in context. Reading becomes part of Sameerah's daily routine. Before bed, she reads a few pages from her book or a short story online. She likes how reading helps her relax while also improving her English. Step 4. Writing in English. Writing is another important part of Sameerah's practice. She starts by writing simple sentences in a diary. Every night she writes about her day in English. Her sentences are not perfect, but that's okay. The goal is to practice and get better over time. At first, Sameerah writes very short sentences like, Today, I went to the park. It was a sunny day. I ate lunch with my friends. After a few weeks, Sameerah feels more confident. She starts writing longer sentences. Today, I went to the park with my friends. We played games and had a picnic. It was a sunny and beautiful day, and we had a lot of fun. Writing in English helps Sameerah think about how to use new words and form sentences. She doesn't worry too much about grammar at the beginning. She just focuses on getting her ideas down on paper. As she writes more, she notices that her sentences become clearer and more natural. Step 5. Using language apps. One day, Sameerah discovers a language learning app on her phone. The app has fun games and exercises that help her practice English in a new way. She spends 10 minutes every day using the app. Sometimes the app asks her to match words with pictures. Other times, she has to choose the correct sentence or answer questions about grammar. The app also helps Sameerah practice speaking. It gives her short phrases to repeat, and she listens to native speakers to improve her pronunciation. Sameerah likes using the app because it makes learning feel like a game. She earns points and gets rewards for completing challenges, which keeps her motivated. The app becomes one of Sameerah's favorite ways to practice. It's easy to use, and she can learn anywhere, on the bus, during a break, or even while waiting in line. She likes how it helps her practice different skills like speaking, listening, and grammar. Step 6. Connecting with friends online. Even though Sameerah practices by herself at home, she also finds ways to practice with other people. She joins an online group where people from different countries practice English together. They chat in English and share their experiences of learning the language. Sameerah enjoys chatting with her new friends. They help each other with vocabulary and grammar, and they encourage one another to keep practicing. Sometimes they even have video calls where they practice speaking English together. This helps Sameerah become more confident in speaking because she gets real-life practice with people who are also learning. Conclusion of Chapter 1. By following these steps, Sameerah becomes better at English every day. She listens, speaks, reads, writes, and uses apps to make learning fun. Practicing at home isn't always easy, but Sameerah knows that with a little effort, she can reach her goal of speaking English fluently. Chapter 2. Sameerah's Journey to Better English. In the first chapter, we learned how Sameerah began practicing English at home using simple methods like listening to songs, reading books, and speaking to herself in front of a mirror. She followed her plan every day and found new ways to make learning fun. However, as time passed, Sameerah started to face new challenges. In this chapter, we will see how Sameerah deals with these challenges and continues her journey to mastering English. Step 1. Overcoming boredom. After a few weeks of following her routine, Sameerah started to feel a bit bored. Listening to the same songs and watching the same videos over and over wasn't as exciting as it was at the beginning. She realized that she needed to change things up to stay motivated. So, Sameerah decided to try new activities. She started listening to English podcasts instead of just music. One of her favorite podcasts was about cooking, something she loved to do in her free time. As she listened, Sameerah learned new words like ingredients, recipe, and bake. Listening to a topic she was interested in made learning more fun and helped her stay engaged. Sameerah also started watching new types of videos. Instead of cartoons, she found travel videos in English. These videos showed different places around the world, and Sameerah loved learning about other cultures while improving her English at the same time. She even found some cooking tutorials in English, which helped her combine her love for food with language learning. By adding variety to her routine, Sameerah felt excited to practice English again. She learned that it's important to keep things fresh and interesting, especially when learning something new. Step 2. Dealing with mistakes. Like many people learning a new language, Sameerah made mistakes. Sometimes when she practiced speaking, she used the wrong word or mixed up her grammar. When she wrote in her diary, she wasn't always sure if her sentences were correct. At first, Sameerah felt frustrated. She didn't like making mistakes and often wondered if she would ever be able to speak English perfectly. But then she realized that making mistakes was a natural part of learning. In fact, mistakes were how she could learn faster. To help herself feel better, Sameerah started keeping a mistake journal. Every time she made a mistake, she wrote it down in her journal. Next to each mistake, she wrote the correct way to say the sentence or word. For example, mistake. I going to the park. Correction. I am going to the park. By keeping track of her mistakes, Sameerah could see where she needed to improve. And as she looked back at her journal, she noticed that she was making fewer and fewer mistakes over time. This gave her the confidence to keep going, even when things got tough. Step 3. Finding a study buddy. Practicing English alone was effective, but sometimes Sameerah felt lonely. She wanted to talk to someone who could help her practice and motivate her to keep learning. That's when she decided to find a study buddy. Sameerah joined an online English learning group and met a girl named Emily from Australia. Emily was learning Spanish, and the two of them decided to help each other. They met online twice a week to practice speaking English and Spanish. This type of exchange is called a language exchange, and it's a great way to learn a language with someone else. When they spoke in English, Emily helped Sameerah with her pronunciation and grammar, and when they spoke in Spanish, Sameerah helped Emily. This way, both of them improved and had fun at the same time. Sameerah enjoyed having a study buddy because it gave her someone to talk to regularly. They also encouraged each other to keep practicing, even when they felt tired or unmotivated. Sameerah learned that learning with a friend made the process much more enjoyable. Step 4. Setting small goals. One of the challenges Sameerah faced was feeling like she wasn't making enough progress. Sometimes, after weeks of practicing, she still felt like she couldn't speak fluently. She wanted to be perfect, but that wasn't happening overnight. Sameerah realized that she needed to set small, realistic goals for herself instead of trying to become fluent quickly. She broke her big goal into smaller steps. For example, her new goals were Learn 5 new words every week. Speak English for 10 minutes every day. And write a paragraph in her diary 3 times a week. By focusing on these smaller goals, Sameerah started to feel more successful. Every time she learned a new word or completed one of her goals, she felt proud of herself. This gave her the motivation to keep going. She learned that it's important to celebrate small victories along the way. Step 5. Immersing herself in English. Sameerah also learned a new technique to improve her English: immersion. Immersion means surrounding yourself with the language as much as possible. Sameerah knew that if she wanted to learn faster, she needed to create an English environment at home. Here's what she did to immerse herself in English. She changed the language on her phone and computer to English. This helped her learn everyday words like settings, messages, and notifications. She labeled objects around her house in English. For example, she put a label on her refrigerator that said fridge, on her door that said door, and on her bed that said bed. Every time she saw these objects, she would read the English word and remember it. She started thinking in English. Whenever Sameerah did something, she tried to think about it in English. For example, when she made breakfast, she thought, "I am making toast and eggs." This helped her practice forming sentences in her head. By immersing herself in English, Sameerah made the language a part of her daily life. She didn't just study English during her practice time, she lived in English throughout the day. This helped her improve much faster. Step 6. Rewarding herself. Learning a language takes time, and sometimes it can feel tiring. Sameerah knew that she needed to stay motivated, so she decided to reward herself whenever she reached a goal. For example, when she learned 20 new words, she treated herself to a nice dessert. When she finished reading her first English book, she bought herself a small gift. These rewards made her feel happy and gave her something to look forward to. Sameerah also made a progress chart. She put it on her wall, and every time she completed a goal, she put a sticker on the chart. Seeing the chart fill up with stickers made her feel proud of her progress. It was a visual reminder that she was getting better every day. Step 7. Joining an English club. As Sameerah continued to practice at home, she also looked for more ways to practice speaking with other people. One day, she found an online English club where people from around the world met once a week to practice speaking. The club had people from different countries, all learning English together. Sameerah was nervous at first. She wasn't sure if her English was good enough to join the conversation. But when she joined her first meeting, she realized that everyone was there to learn, just like her. They were all friendly and supportive. During the meetings, Sameerah practiced speaking about different topics. Sometimes they talked about travel, other times about food or hobbies. Each time, Sameerah felt more confident speaking in front of others. The more she practiced, the easier it became. Joining the English club was a big step for Sameerah. It gave her the chance to speak with people who had different accents and ways of speaking. This helped her improve her listening skills as well as her speaking. Step 8. Celebrating progress. After a few months of practicing every day, Sameerah noticed a big improvement in her English. She could understand more when listening to songs and videos. She could speak more confidently, even with native speakers. Her reading and writing had also improved. Sameerah felt proud of how far she had come. One day, Sameerah decided to look back at her first diary entries. She noticed how simple her sentences had been at the beginning, but now her sentences were longer and more complex. She could express her thoughts in English much better than before. To celebrate her progress, Sameerah decided to treat herself to a special dinner. She invited her family to join her, and during the meal, she practiced speaking English with them. Her family was amazed at how much she had improved. They told her how proud they were of her hard work. Sameerah knew that her journey wasn't over. There was still more to learn, and she was excited to keep going. But for now, she took a moment to celebrate how much she had achieved. Conclusion of Chapter 2. In this chapter, we saw how Sameerah faced new challenges on her journey to learning English. She overcame boredom, dealt with mistakes, and found ways to stay motivated. By setting small goals, immersing herself in the language, and joining an English club, Sameerah continued to improve. Now she feels more confident and excited about learning English. In the next chapter, we will follow Sameerah as she explores more advanced ways to practice English and pushes herself to reach the next level. Stay tuned. Chapter 3. Sameerah takes her English learning to the next level. Sameerah had come a long way on her English learning journey. She was now much more confident in speaking, listening, reading, and writing. But she knew there was still more to learn, and she wanted to take her skills to the next level. In this chapter, we'll explore how Sameerah challenges herself with more advanced methods and techniques to continue improving her English. Step 1. Watching English TV shows and movies. Sameerah had been watching short videos and tutorials in English, but now she decided to challenge herself with something more complex: TV shows and movies. She chose to start with shows that had English subtitles, so she could read the words while listening to the dialogue. At first, it was difficult. The characters in the show spoke quickly, and Sameerah couldn't always understand everything they said, but she didn't give up. She paused the show when she needed to, rewound parts she didn't understand, and used the subtitles to help her follow along. One of the shows she enjoyed was about life in a busy city, which taught her many useful words and phrases for everyday situations. For example, she learned phrases like catch a bus, run errands, and grab a bite to eat. Watching these shows gave Sameerah more exposure to how native speakers communicate naturally. After a while, Sameerah began watching the shows without subtitles. She still couldn't understand everything perfectly, but she noticed that her listening skills were getting much better. She was able to pick up on slang expressions and even jokes, which made her feel more confident in her English abilities. Step 2. Reading longer books. Sameerah had started her English reading journey with simple books for beginners, but now she felt ready to take on more challenging material. She visited the local library and found a book that was written for intermediate English learners. It was a mystery story, and the plot was interesting enough to keep her motivated to keep reading. At first, it was slow going. Sameerah had to look up many words in the dictionary, and sometimes she needed to reread sentences to understand them. But with time, she found that she was getting better at understanding the story. The more she read, the more comfortable she became with new vocabulary and complex sentence structures. To make reading more fun, Sameerah started keeping a word diary. Whenever she found a new word or phrase that she didn't know, she wrote it down in her diary with its meaning. At the end of each week, she reviewed the new words she had learned. This helped her build her vocabulary in a structured way. Reading longer books also helped Sameerah with her writing. As she read, she paid attention to how the sentences were formed, how the dialogue was written, and how the characters expressed their thoughts. She used this as inspiration when she wrote in her own English diary, trying to imitate the style of the book she was reading. Step 3. Practicing speaking with native speakers. While Sameerah had been practicing speaking English with her language exchange partner and her online English club, she knew she needed to push herself further. So, she decided to find ways to practice speaking with native English speakers. Sameerah joined a local language cafe, a place where people from different countries came together to practice languages. There, she met people from all over the world, but the main language they used to communicate was English. It was a casual environment, so Sameerah felt comfortable speaking with people without the pressure of making mistakes. During her first few visits, Sameerah felt a little nervous. The native speakers spoke quickly, and she had to ask them to slow down or repeat themselves. But she reminded herself that this was normal and that everyone was there to learn. Over time, Sameerah became more comfortable. In these conversations, she learned new ways of expressing herself, and her confidence grew. The best part of the language cafe was that it gave Sameerah a chance to experience different accents and dialects. Some of the native speakers had British accents, while others had American or Australian accents. This helped Sameerah get used to the variety of English spoken around the world. Step 4. Writing more complex sentences. In the beginning, Sameerah had kept her writing simple. Her English diary was filled with short sentences like, "I went to the park," and "I had dinner with my family." But now that her skills were improving, she wanted to challenge herself to write more complex sentences and thoughts. Sameerah began to write about more abstract topics, like her opinions on books she was reading or her thoughts on current events. She didn't just describe what she did during the day, but also how she felt and what she thought about things. This allowed her to practice using more advanced grammar structures and vocabulary. For example, instead of writing, "The book was good," she wrote, "I found the book to be incredibly engaging, especially the way the author described the characters' emotions." By pushing herself to write in this way, Sameerah felt that she was truly starting to master English. To get feedback on her writing, Sameerah joined an online writing group where members shared their work and gave each other suggestions for improvement. This helped her learn how to make her writing clearer and more natural. It also gave her a sense of accomplishment when other members praised her progress. Step 5. Preparing for English exams. Sameerah had been learning English for fun, but now she started to think about taking an official English exam, like the IELTS or TOEFL. She knew that having a certificate would be helpful for her career, and it would also give her a new goal to work towards. To prepare, Sameerah found free resources online, including practice tests and study guides. She dedicated some time each day to practicing specific exam skills, like listening comprehension, reading passages, and writing essays. She also watched videos of people who had taken the exam so she could learn from their experiences and strategies. One of the hardest parts for Sameerah was preparing for the speaking section of the exam. In this part, she would need to speak in English for several minutes, answering questions about herself and discussing different topics. To practice, she recorded herself speaking and listened to the recordings to see how she could improve. Sameerah also asked her English club and language cafe friends to help her practice. They would ask her questions similar to those on the exam, and she would practice giving clear, thoughtful answers. This not only improved her speaking skills, but also helped her feel more confident about taking the exam. Step 6. Practicing English at work. Sameerah worked in a company where most of her colleagues spoke her native language. However, there were some international clients who only spoke English. Sameerah saw this as an opportunity to practice her English in a professional setting. At first, Sameerah was nervous about using English at work. She worried that she might make mistakes in front of her colleagues or clients. But she reminded herself that everyone makes mistakes when learning a new language, and the only way to improve was to practice. She started small, using English in emails and during phone calls with clients. As her confidence grew, she began participating in English meetings and even gave a short presentation in English. Her colleagues were impressed with her improvement, and Sameerah felt proud of how far she had come. Practicing English at work helped Sameerah develop her professional vocabulary, which was different from the everyday English she had been practicing at home. She learned new terms related to her job and became more comfortable using them in conversations. Step 7. Planning an English-speaking trip. By now, Sameerah felt that her English had improved significantly. She could communicate with native speakers, understand English TV shows and books, and write more complex sentences. But she wanted to test her skills in the real world, so she decided to plan a trip to an English-speaking country. Sameerah chose to visit the United States for her trip. She was excited to experience American culture and see famous places like New York City and Los Angeles. More importantly, she was looking forward to using English in everyday situations, like ordering food at restaurants, asking for directions, and talking to locals. Before the trip, Sameerah researched common phrases and expressions used in American English, since she had mostly been learning British English. She practiced speaking with an American accent, so she would feel more comfortable when talking to people in the U.S. The trip was a success. Sameerah was able to use her English in real-life situations, and she felt more confident than ever before. She even made some new friends during her travels and stayed in touch with them through social media, continuing to practice English with them after returning home. Conclusion of Chapter 3. In this chapter, Sameerah took her English learning to the next level by challenging herself with more advanced activities. She watched English TV shows and movies, read longer books, practiced speaking with native speakers, and even used English at work. By preparing for an English exam and planning a trip to an English-speaking country, Sameerah pushed herself to reach new heights in her language learning journey. In the next chapter, we'll follow Sameerah as she reflects on her progress and sets new goals for the future. Stay tuned for more tips on how to practice and improve your English. Chapter 4. Reflecting on Progress and Setting New Goals. As Sameerah returned from her trip to the United States, she felt a wave of excitement and pride. Her English had improved tremendously, and she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come since she first began learning the language. This chapter explores her reflections on her journey and the new goals she sets for her future learning. Step 1. Reflecting on the journey. Back at home in London, Sameerah took some time to sit down with her English diary. She opened it to the first few entries she had written months ago. The entries were filled with simple sentences and basic vocabulary describing her day-to-day activities. She smiled as she read them, feeling a sense of accomplishment. Next, she flipped to the more recent entries. These were longer, more complex, and filled with thoughts and opinions about various topics. Sameerah noted how her writing had evolved, reflecting not just her language skills, but also her confidence in expressing her ideas. "Wow, I can really see how much I've grown," she thought. She realized that each step she had taken, from watching short videos to writing complex sentences and practicing speaking with native speakers, had contributed to her improvement. It was a journey full of challenges, but each challenge had helped her become a better English speaker and writer. Sameerah also thought about the moments that had been particularly difficult. She remembered feeling nervous when speaking at the language cafe, and the frustration she felt when she didn't understand certain phrases in TV shows. Yet, she had pushed through those moments. Each challenge had made her stronger and more determined to keep learning. Step 2. Setting new goals. After reflecting on her journey, Sameerah knew it was time to set new goals. She wanted to continue improving her English, but she also wanted to make her learning more exciting. With a smile, she began writing down her new goals in her diary. 1. Join a book club. Sameerah loved reading and realized that joining a book club would not only help her read more, but also give her a chance to discuss books in English with others. She planned to search for local clubs that focused on genres she enjoyed, such as mystery and fantasy. 2. Volunteer to teach English. Sameerah thought it would be rewarding to share her knowledge with others. She wanted to volunteer with organizations that helped immigrants learn English. This way, she could practice her teaching skills while also helping others improve their English. 3. Create a YouTube channel. Inspired by the English-speaking videos she had watched, Sameerah wanted to start her own YouTube channel. She imagined sharing her journey, offering tips for English learners, and even creating videos about her favorite books and shows. This would not only help her practice speaking, but also connect with other learners around the world.